we're going to take a look at how to adjust the stitch settings to create a balanced seam on any fabric. Firstly, and most importantly, we need to look at tensions. The amount of thread that feeds through the machine to create the stitches is controlled by tension dials. Each thread passes through its own tension dial. Within the tension dial, there are two discs which hold the thread and control the amount of thread released. The tension dials can be adjusted to increase or decrease the tension for each thread. A higher tension setting is tighter and results in a tighter stitch. Let's take a look at what a balanced stitch looks like. You can see that the lower loop of thread and the upper loop of thread sit neatly on the cut edge of the fabric. If we reduce the tension of the lower looper, you can see that the blue thread becomes loopy and sits away from the edge of the fabric. If we tighten the upper looper, you can see the green thread puckers and folds the edge of the fabric. You will need to adjust the tension settings for different types of fabric. Thicker, heavier fabrics will usually require a looser tension as more thread is required to go through the bulk and whip the chunkier edges. If your threads show when your seam is pulled apart, this is called grinning, and it's a result of the needle thread tensions being too loose. Always check your test pieces on the inside and the outside when preparing to join seams. Do take your time to get to grips with the tension settings and do plenty of experiments on different fabrics. Once you understand how the tension works, you can learn to control and conquer it for any fabric. Let's talk about differential feed. Overlockers have two sets of feed dogs. These are little teeth which pull the fabric from underneath through the machine. Combined with the presser foot on top of the fabric, these provide a great deal of control to the fabric as it's sewn. The differential feed controls the difference in speed between the two sets of feed dogs as they feed the fabric through the machine underneath the needles. This is a magic feature which controls the amount of stretch in the seam and stops the fabric stretching out as you sew. The two sets of feed dogs on an overlocker move independently. If the front feed dogs pull the fabric through and the back feed dogs are set slightly slower, the fabric is condensed slightly under the presser foot, and therefore the amount the fabric is stretched as it's sewn is reduced. The differential feed dial controls the difference in the speeds of the two sets of teeth. Increasing the differential feed speeds up the feed dogs, and reducing the differential feed slows them down. This is often the most puzzling adjustment to get your head around, so I want us to spend plenty of time making sure that you're confident on what it's for and when to adjust it. Okay, so to start with, I've sewn this piece of single cotton jersey using all the default settings. Remember, the default settings are the one highlighted on this machine. Check your manual if you're not sure about your machine model. So this is what the stitching will look like on the default differential feed setting of 1. You can see the seam is slightly stretched out and fluted or banana shaped. I'm now going to turn the dial to increase the differential feed. The dial can be moved in small increments, so I've increased it by 3 clicks. I've sewn another line of stitches so we can compare. You can see that the stitches are a little more bunched together and the fabric is starting to ruche just a little bit. If we move the dial to the top, which is marked 2, and sew again, then we can compare the 3 settings. You can see that the fabric has ruched even more. Now I'm going to move the dial down to the 0.7 mark. This has stretched the fabric out a little bit. When we lay the fabric down, we can see that the fabric has a gentle curve to it. This shows that the fabric has stretched. When adjusting the differential feed, you only need to go up one click at a time and test the setting on a scrap of fabric. Each small increase or decrease will make a difference. Different fabrics will need different differential feed settings depending on their weight or fibre content. A lightweight, slinky fabric with lots of elastane, such as viscose jersey, will stretch out more as it's sewn, and a higher differential feed will help prevent this from happening. Heavier weight fabrics like Ponte Roma or sweatshirting are likely to need lower settings. These fabrics can be bulky, and getting them bunched up under the machine is easy to do. Always keep hold of your scraps of fabric to test on and get your settings right. You will of course want to adjust some of the other settings to create neat seams. And we'll discuss this in the next video.